And we have this clip here of him, which again, like, look, we don't typically do adversarial interviews on this podcast, Matt, but there have been people on the show who I might not agree with on everything or even might disagree with on a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you this right now. This is a left reckoning promise. We're never going to have a fucking Silicon Valley venture capitalist on the program to talk about the United States government bailing out the Silicon Valley Bank. That is a left reckoning promise.
And I'll also just say this is not just a venture capitalist. This is an article here from Market Beat, which I'll be honest, I don't read Market Beat, but this is about Rumble. Kraft Ventures GP LLC purchased new position in Rumble. This is January of this year, 2023. Now, who runs Kraft Ventures? Well, our good buddy, David Sachs. So, investor in Jimmy's platform. So that's not disclosed. I would think maybe you want to disclose that if you're going to talk about the financial crisis and the platform that you promote. Maybe you want to say, by the way, this guy has a major stake in the platform I say is going to say free speech.
You know, I don't want to go on a whole tangent here. I really do think, Matt, we need to do the independent media conversation. We've been talking about doing it. We just need to pick a week to do it. Mm-hmm. But look, it's a TYT. I mean, it's not, again, this is the thing that gets so annoying. You have commentators who make an argument or whatever, and then people act like they are the only, they own that, like they were the one who came up with it or whatever. The Young Turks, very impressive, has done a lot for building independent media, has done a lot of highlighting corruption in the American political scene, talking about money and politics, right? And another aspect to that is like corporate control of the media, right? Correct. The corporate power controls the media. It's been great that independent media has started to flourish, right? It's great that we can do this program. I'm not saying independent media is bad. I'm not even going to go into my whole thing that I usually do about like, let's not miss, the goal here, which is like building a working class movement for trying to build up a strong, like independent media scene. But what I am going to say is that corporations have a lot of interest in having a lot of influence over CNN, MSNBC, or as we should call it, Microsoft NBC. Or they have a lot of interest in doing that. They also recognize the power and the influence that independent media has, and they play a big role in that. We talk about how like we are not independent because we have to utilize YouTube, right? Effectively, we are employees of YouTube, right? We can try to do our own things, and we are independent in the sense of like we pick what we talk about, but you have to do it in a constrained sense, right? You have all these free speech alternatives like Rumble, right? And they're run by these folks. Another one, Colin, is run by him as well, right? And it's great. Like it's great that Ben has his Colin show. I get a lot from it. But don't think for a second that these people who are putting money into these systems don't want to have some influence over what is being done on those platforms, right? Mm-hmm. It is just like whenever somebody tells you this is non-biased or this is a free space, your bullshit detector should start going off. Do you know what I mean? You know, don't be conspiratorial. Don't like get yourself into like a neurotic state, but know that there's big ass money behind these things too. Anyway, I didn't even know that he's behind Rumble. I knew he's behind Colin, and that makes it a little worse.
Yep. So here is Jimmy, and you can say this isn't an adversarial interview either. This is about as adversarial as it gets.
And yet you still saw famous venture capitalists like PayPal co-founder and Elon.
He's reading from a Slate.
I was about. Is that Ed's piece? No.
Is Ed at Slate now? That's a good question. I think
don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Capitalists like PayPal co-founder and Elon Musk buddy David Sachs begging the Federal Reserve to force a merger or a bailout, then insisting he was not asking for a bailout, while again asking for a bailout. Now, David, you didn't ask for them to take care of the investors, and you didn't ask them to take care of the management. You just asked them to cover the depositors. Is that technically a bailout?
I don't think so. I think when we think about bailouts, and this was certainly true in 2008, you think about basically the stockholders and the bondholders and the management of these companies. They screw up and then they get bailed out and saved by the federal government. I'm not advocating for that. I said that the stockholders should be wiped out. The bondholders should be wiped out. The management stock options should be wiped out. Becker, the CEO, he's going to be in litigation for years. He may have issues with his his stock sales being clawed back. Who knows? Okay. I'm not defending these guys at all, but I do believe that I don't think depositors should take it on the chin. And it's not just about the at SVB. I think it's really anywhere, and we can talk about that. But I don't think depositors should take it on the chin because of that. And and I think by the time I was speaking out, I think it's important to note when I was saying these things. So I didn't tweet about SVB until they were already in receivership. And this was Friday afternoon.
And so you were being blamed. Some people on social media were blaming you for creating a run on the bank, but you didn't start tweeting about it until after it was already in receivership.
Yeah. They must think I'm Superman.
So I got a question. Why were you tweeting? What was the point of tweeting? What was the point of tweeting if it was so unimportant? And the truth is, I mean, this is from David Day and the Prospect. I predicted that calls for a bailout, which retroactive. Here it is. Retroactive changing of the deposit insurance system from $250,000 to infinite for two banks, one of which happened to be staffed by either incompetence or corrupt actors, seems like an enormous step. And now you see FDIC people being like, yeah, we probably overreacted to that. Why did they overreact? Because David Sachs and his buddies got on social media to basically relay this exact message, that this is that if you don't make these depositors whole, the sky is going to fall, and you need to do that now, or else there's going to be absolute panic. And they got what they wanted, and like that led to the result that led them to Twitter in the first place. So that like this whole like, well, I just did it after it was already in receivership anyway. You were all like 5-alarm fire, Chicken Little out there, like basically saying we're going to lose innovation in this country if you don't step in. And now you have the gall to go on all these platforms, supposedly independent platforms, and say like, actually, it wasn't me. It was just like the responsible thing, and it wasn't even a bailout after all. No, this is going to be paid for by fees from banks that we all get to pay for. The exact same thing that happened in the financial crisis.
I think Bronco said it best. I'm paraphrasing, but like, I don't know, having a literal VC, a venture capitalist, on your program to talk about how bailing out the venture capitalist wasn't a bailout is a pretty corporate shill thing to do. But dropping the Dore stuff for a second, this talk about these small depositors or these little guys being fucked over by the system is such bullshit. The reason that Silicon Valley got this kind of response, the reason why we've been covering it, the reason why by the way, that piece was the Ed Ongueso piece, which is, I don't know, funny to see the ripple effect of Ed's excellent writing and reporting on that. 90% of the accounts at Silicon Valley Bank were over the FDIC insurance limit, right? So the point there is that this bank was catering to venture capitalists, and yes, when the federal government changes its rules and its response for something like that to cater to protect venture capitalists, it is a bailout. It is a question of the public government response to the losses of rich guys, right? So this Crimea River, small town, little local investor guy getting fucked over on SVB. And look, I totally agree that I think that like you see something like that, you should generally look out for depositors with some level of trepidation and an understanding that there is a difference between some small business person investing or putting their money in a bank and a bank that is literally trying to skirt regulations, to not only skirt regulations, but influence the government to limit the regulations on the books on their activities, right? If that is what your bank is involved in and it is a bank that services those people, I think if anything beyond like a question about whether or not we should insure those or take care of them or whatever, Yeah, it is something that people should be mad about and that people should, be talking about instead of this kind of sob story of like, oh, this has gotten blown out of proportion. These are some of the most wealthy, powerful people in this country who basically got to say, we're not going to deal with the government regulations. We're special. We don't have to be under this kind of system. Advocate and invest and lobby to try to break those rules, and then to have the government trip over itself to cater to them. Yeah, man, shut the fuck up, David Sachs and Jimmy. Like, dude, I mean, like, and the thing is, like, too, is like, well, why is Sachs interested in this? Like, I mean, probably because he gets to go on with a stone Jimmy Dore and get no pushback on his bullshit. Because, like, again, I wouldn't be interviewing David Sachs on this program. That's just not going to happen. But if I were in some kind of alternate universe, right, the host of a program that was going to do it, I would have done my fucking research to be able to call bullshit on the very clear bullshit that David Sachs is spitting.